Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Adi, and today we have two special guests. First off, we have Jackson Finch, friend of the channel. Jackson, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing well. And for those who don't know you, can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I've been a VGC player since like 2016. I have a couple of results in 2018. I got top 8 at NAIC, and in the online world, I got top 16 in my region for the last two Players Cups.
Yeah, and of course, we've seen a couple of your team reports on the channel. And the other player that we have is his first team report on this channel, but a very accomplished player as well, Kyle Geffner. Kyle, how are you doing?
Doing good, Adi.
And do you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I started playing VGC in 2020, right as the season started. Didn't really do much until the pandemic hit, and then I've kind of just been grinding online tours and then playing a lot.
Yeah, and I didn't know who you were at the beginning of the season, but you've popped up in so many top cut reports that I had to get you on the channel at some point, and we finally had a good excuse when you won the second Victory Road qualifier of their summer circuit, and that was with this really cool Sun team that I needed to show everyone. And so, I guess, can you talk me through the team and the team building process?
Okay. So in like the past of Sun, like throughout 2020, we've seen like a lot of rock types do pretty well on it. And I think obviously the main reason for this is that rock's covering 3 Dynamax types that are beating Venusaur. And I think a lot of the time, consistent ways of beating Venusaur are preventing Powder and Dynamaxing with either fire, ice, or flying types, and Regirocking covers all 3. So, or rock types in general. I used Stack Attacka back in Players Cup 2, I think, and people have used Tyranitar and a bunch of other rock types in the past as well, and it serves its purpose pretty well. Another thing is Zapdos. I was looking at that in the context of Sun builds for a little while now, because it's good to have your own flying type to deal with opposing Venusaur. Venucle makes it a lot easier in the mirror to have something that isn't Vena P2 mirrors. So I was looking at that and looking at potential ways of having alternative game plans against Sun, so I didn't have to play the ugly Sun mirror. And Zapdos has fit the bill pretty well. It ended up fitting a couple of my criteria as well for other things that weren't mirror related. Like it helped deal with like Kartana and Ferrothorn, which most of the time you would rely on Torkoal for, but obviously it's not entirely realistic to rely entirely on one Pokemon for an entire matchup. And it also deals with Thun decently as well. And Zapdos ended up synergizing pretty well with Grimmsnarl too, with Fake Tears and all that. I think it's 5 special attackers on this team in the Regirock, and Grim has screens to help with all of them and Fake Tears to help with 4 of them. So I have 4 special attackers in Regirock. But not all of this can be credited to me though. Like I saw this 6 in an NPA set while I was considering Zapdos, and my main gripe with what happened to the NPA set was that the Zapdos and Grimmsnarl weren't exactly what I wanted them to be. Like I saw Taunt Grim on that set, and Taunt Grim in general makes it so that it's not really a threat. You can sort of leave the Grimmsnarl alone after it sets screens. And Zapdos wasn't Goggles, which meant it wasn't really a good bring into the Sun Mirror anyway. So I think that's all I got on it though. But it wasn't very good for the Regirock side.
Mm-hmm. And that's something else I've noticed is I definitely noticed a lot of rock types popping up on Sun teams. One of the first teams that did very well this format was Sam Pandelis using a Rhyperior on a Stun team. Why did you pick the Regirock over some other rock type like Stack Attack or Regirock? Or excuse me, or Rhyperior?
Regirock, so Clear Body is really nice. I think he's a funny guy. And I think like Regirock matching up it well into Glastrier specifically is something that I enjoyed. I also liked that a lot of the time past Regirocks in like Series 7 would run Ice Punch. And I think Drain Punch was an interesting find in recent Regirock meta, I guess. Because it made it so that Regirock is going to be 1v1ing stuff like Urshifu and Kartana. So it was an interesting pick, and I enjoyed using it.
I think Drain Punch also lets you 1v1 P2, which is actually massive for this team because Eerie Impulse P2 just runs through you if you do not answer quickly or get to it in an endgame with Regirock.
Yeah, definitely. I was thinking about Pokemon that not only respond to Glastrier, which is probably the biggest threat in the format, but also Pokemon that are often next to Glastrier. And of course, the most common Glastrier partner is probably Porygon 2. And so having a Pokemon that can respond to both of those is really valuable, and Drain Punch really lets Regirock do that. And so I guess there isn't really much to say about the reasoning for Torkoal, Venusaur, Porygon 2. Those feel like the staples on a Sun team. Did you have any second thoughts about any of those members?
No, I recently like changed the Venusaur set, and I like this a lot more because its synergy with P2 is a lot better, because Koba Venusaur lets you lead it with P2 much more comfortably, and I was much more of a Life Orb guy in the past, but Koba's just really strong as a lead with Porygon 2, and the extra damage isn't entirely important, but Koba just gives you that versatility that you need so that Porygon 2 Venusaur can lead into basically anything. I changed some of my EVs as well so that if I lead Porygon 2 Venusaur into opposing Porygon 2, they don't get a special attack boost. And I guess like the Torkoal, the Earth Power slot was a little bit flexible, but those three have always just been Sun staples.
Yeah, pretty much. Do you remember what the Venusaur spread does?
Yeah, or I don't remember the special side. I should have written it down somewhere, but on the physical side, it lives. It's like 4 Adamant, Incin, Flare Blitz, and Sun, and that's like it gives you enough leeway for Incin that run a decent amount of attack, or if you take Fake Out Chip and it's not Adamant, stuff like that. And the speed stat also lets you, like, let's say I think you're in Sun, you know, you get a speed drop or something, you'll still be able to outspeed like base 100s, I think.
And then I guess regarding the Porygon 2 and the Torkoal, they, like you said, have some flexibility in the movesets. Why did you choose these specific moves over things like Eerie Impulse on Porygon 2 or like Heat Wave or Solar Beam on Torkoal?
I'm a big advocate for Ice Beam on Porygon 2, especially on Sun, just because it's going to give you that extra bit of coverage against Landorus. And Landorus in general has been used as a Sun counter for almost as long as the format's been around. And Earth Power on Torkoal just made it so that I had really flexible options against Colossal, because in the Colossal matchup, most of the issues that people have with the Pokemon in general, or the archetype, is that it'll just run through you unless you have a plan. And what I can do in almost every situation is lead Venusaur P2, and the counter lead to that is Dragapult, or is Urshifu and Colossal, and they still have to win a 50-50. So I can always click Sleep Powder Trick Room, and if they go for Close Combat Vocalith, then they're going to sleep. And if they go for Aqua Jet and kill my Venusaur, then I'm getting in Torkoal after Aqua Jet Chip, which is going to kill the Colossal if it maxes. So it just gives that level of flexibility in the Cole matchup specifically.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's I've seen people dropping Sleep Powder on Venusaur, and I can just never wrap my head around why when it's just such a game warping move to have on your Pokemon.
It's pretty much just the get out of jail free button. Like, if you don't have Sleep Powder, especially in an open team sheet format, the amount of leads that can lead into Venusaur just like expands exponentially.
Exactly.
Because there's so many things that just cannot, like, they pretty much just say, oh, you lead Venusaur, I'm going to get slept and I lose. So even if you're not clicking it, I think in my top cut run, which I think was 5 sets, I clicked Sleep Powder once and it missed. And I brought Venusaur in almost every single set, but it's so important to have, and you can't go without it.
You get the chance to make plays, and even if you make the incorrect plays, sometimes you still get bailed out.
Yeah. It's like it's not really necessary in a lot of situations, but the fact that it can the threat of it is so important. And most of the time, like, you don't really need to protect. Max guard's usually enough. So if it ain't broke.
Mm-hmm. And then, so you mentioned the Zapdos safety goggles specifically as Sun counterplay, and the moves are pretty standard. I know that like Grimmsnarl Zapdos normally runs really offensive Zapdos and Grimmsnarl without screens, sort of on the team that Zine really popularized back in December, I think. And so I guess why did you choose to run this screens Grimmsnarl that just had fake tears as its only real way of supporting Zapdos over something like the Lagging Tail version that was more popular?
I've always felt that Lagging Tail was a bit inconsistent. I think it's definitely a set that you have to respect and one that's threatening, but I think in a lot of cases, if you're going to have a team as bulky as this, screens are going to help you a ton in the long run. And my main issue with running screens is that in a lot of cases, it's going to be if you're creating one of the opponent's 3 max turns, then you're not going to have a good time. But I think if you have this strong of a like end game plan, then in a lot of cases you can outplay your opponent without having to make hard calls.
Mm-hmm. And did the experience of playing through a Series 8 metagame where every single team had screens plus Venusaur impact that at all?
Maybe a little bit. I definitely considered policy on Venusaur for a little while just because of Series 8 instincts. I also remember back in Series 5, I think it should have been Series 5. There was the Nails team, which was really just disgusting, that had screens Grimmsnarl with Venusaur and Dusclops and all that, and screens plus Vine Lash is hell to deal with for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the team he got 6th place in Players Cup 2, so Series 7. But it was originally built in Series 5. I know that you've probably seen it around way back then with Gigalith on it instead of Glastrier.
Oh yeah,
but
you're right.
Gigalith is the Series 9 version, by the way. It's the better one.
Yeah. I guess, yeah. No more Dusclops. You got a Porygon 2. Regirock might be better than Glastrier, or definitely better than Gigalith.
No. Gigalith is the one that's put on the team. It's now Regirock.
Yeah, time to make the change. I guess with respect to Regirock, you mentioned Drain Punch as the last move, but for me, Drain Punch was like the first move I put on my Regirock team, and I had Ice Punch over Stomping Tantrum. So why did you choose to put Stomping Tantrum on the Regirock?
It's ground lets you get max quakes, and getting the special defense boosts on your partners is always nice. But B, it also covers for the steel types and fire types that are going to, specifically Heatran, I guess, in that case, that would be threatening your team. Just hitting them harder with your max moves is typically puts you in more comfortable positions, I guess. I'm not sure how necessary it is, and I think Ice Punch is a solid 4th move, but I've enjoyed using Stomping Tantrum from what I've played of this team.
I think it's close to necessary, mostly for the Metagross plus Porygon 2 matchup, where if you max Venusaur, it's kind of tough to get through Porygon 2. You have to either be fake tearsing it or just immediately applying pressure or get a Sleep Powder somewhere. And when you're gonna max Regirock, you need to hit the Registeel somehow. And if the Registeel just sits there boosted and just keeps clicking moves, it's gonna become a problem. And Regirock can get rid of it quickly.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I really like the team because it feels a lot like my Series A team, where you get to click screens, you get to click Vine Lash, and then your opponent really kind of feels powerless to do anything because you're just out damaging them, and setting up this like Regirock, which is often just turns into this unkillable behemoth. So I think this team is really cool. I also am a big fan of Grimmsnarl Zapdos as a core that I was using back in Series 7. And so I guess, can you tell me a little bit about some of the common game plans? I don't think we really have like common archetypes that we're facing as much in this metagame, but how you approach the different team compositions that you might see.
Well, I spoke on the Colossal matchup earlier that in a lot of cases, Sun is relatively positive into Colossal if you lead Porygon Venusaur and you're able to sack Venusaur. So having Zapdos in back to deal with Urshifu normally leaves you in a pretty solid position. I think generally, in a lot of cases, it doesn't really matter. Like a lot of your brings don't really matter, except for like Porygon 2, Torkoal, Venusaur, because oftentimes you can adjust to what they're going to lead. If North wants to talk about any of the matchup plans that he came across, I'm up for it, but I don't really have any other contribution here.
Yeah, so besides like one set my top 32, I didn't really have a lot of matchup plans going into it. A lot of the leads was just reactionary, like, well, these are the threats. Well, Grimmsnarl, Venusaur, whatever. Grimmsnarl P2, I need to get Trick Room, or I need to apply pressure to this Landorus early. A lot of stuff that I found is, like, a lot of times you're going to be playing with speed control. So, like, I want Trick Room in the early turns, if I can get it, specifically mostly for P2. But I want, or for Regirock. And then those would be my maxes, and then just have Zapdos in the back. But another lead that I found that was really cool was just lead Venusaur and Regirock. If their Fire, Water, Grass cores can't handle switching into a Rock Slide or can't immediately kill Venusaur, you're just going to click Vine Lash and you're going to click Rock Slide. If you can get up a Curse, and you will literally roll teams, and they can't do anything about it.
That does sound really threatening. And so I guess that brings up a really interesting point, that you're approaching it not as like team matchups, but in terms of the cores that you're facing, right? And so you said that Zapdos features prominently against Sun cores. Regirock is really useful against like Porygon 2 Glastrier. Were there any other cores that you sort of noticed you're bringing specific for Pokemon against?
I can't remember like specific cores, I guess, but it would mostly, I guess Amoonguss is the biggest one, like Amoonguss plus some threat next to it, because the team really doesn't like it. Porygon, you can't lead Porygon 2 Grimmsnarl into it. You can't really lead Regirock into it, so you're pretty much forced into Zapdos, and it's against it. Like, you're almost never getting Trick Room versus Amoonguss, so Torkoal isn't really beating it. So like, you're gonna need to find Zapdos plus threat next to it, usually, to be able to get around like those annoying Amoonguss. Like Amoonguss Rotom Wash is kind of really annoying, or Amoonguss Glastrier is also really annoying. So you're leading like Zapdos Venusaur or like Zapdos Regirock or something, and then just trying to just get through the early turns, sleep powder if you need to, and just don't let things go to sleep, because if you do, you're probably losing.
I think in a lot of cases the whole Amoonguss thing it definitely is annoying, but in a lot of cases you're going to find yourself being able to ignore it if Venusaur's on the field. But in the situations where you can't, it's definitely very important to bring Zapdos. I think Glastrier Amoonguss is definitely one I don't enjoy playing against at all. But if the Glastrier isn't Lumberry, then it's going to be a lot easier to deal with.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I wouldn't expect Amoonguss to be a problem point for the team when you do have like safety goggles. Zapdos, Venusaur is immune to everything it does. Torkoal is really good into it, but and Porygon 2 can even hit it with Ice Beam, right? But that is something that I noticed, or that I was told back in Series 8 was like, how do you when Mike D'Angelo had his team report, he was like, yeah, I deal with Sun by just like clicking sleep moves over and over again into the non-Venusaur slot, and eventually they just run out of damage, and that makes a lot of sense then. And you've really instituted like solid counterplay against it with Zapdos, I think. And so what would you say some of the strengths of the team are, and what would you say some of the biggest weaknesses of the team are?
The biggest strength is you have a Venusaur, and Venusaur is broken, but really the type coverage that the team provides, Venusaur plus Regirock and Zapdos both provide like really, really good offensive coverage. Plus Porygon 2 is also really, really good offensively. So the biggest thing is if your opponent doesn't have defensive answers, you will roll them. And there's just nothing they can do about it because you have a Venusaur and they don't. I guess some of the biggest, by far biggest weakness is you have 4 special attackers and a Regirock. So like Eerie Impulse, especially support Thunderous, is really annoying as well. So Porygon 2 gets Eerie Impulsed, Zapdos can't damage it, Venusaur would need to sleep it, but it can get taunted. So if they have pressure into Regirock, you're gonna get slept. Or sorry, you're gonna get Eerie Impulsed, and then your damage output's just not gonna be very good. And same thing goes for Porygon 2. If you can't damage it, Eerie Impulse is just gonna be really, really annoying.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's the real anti-sun Pokemon, you know. I think that people brought it up in Series 8. Just Prankster Thundurus does so well into, especially if it has like Rain Dance, it can just hard counter a lot of Sun teams.
Yeah, in a lot of cases against Thundurus, you're going to need to force it to make trades or beat it with a Regirock. So, like, you need to make it decide between getting slept and, you know, taking damage or whatever, or put Regirock on the field next to something that is going to make sure that it's going to last a couple of turns.
Mm-hmm. And Jackson, did you have any other strengths that you wanted to point out or weaknesses?
I think the Venusaur comment definitely covers it. In general, I think this is probably the most balanced team to come out of Series 8, at least on my end. And I think in a lot of cases, being able to outplay in a lot of situations has been very fun to play with.
Mm-hmm. And so I guess one of the thing is like, one of the common things I heard from people when I was talking to them about how they approach the Sun matchup is they were very heavily reliant on Celesteela, which had a huge spike in usage recently, especially when paired with Grimmsnarl, again, by their screens or lagging tail. How did you deal with that approach to beating Sun?
So I had a NPA set in, I think it was last week, that I used this team in, and I simply lead Porygon 2 and Celesteela, and and Venusaur, and in a lot of cases they can't stop both, and it's just sort of a similar mentality to the whole Colossal situation, and you know, the fact that your Venusaur has a Copa Berry, if they don't get enough crits, flinches, whatever, then you're going to be in a good spot if you can get Trick Room and Torkoal on the field, because they can't stop both Powder and Trick Room with the potential taunt Grimmsnarl.
Yeah, I remember that set because it was against my team.
Yeah.
In my final set versus Eduardo Cunha for the VR tournament, he had Grimmsnarl, Celesteela, and it was Trick Grimmsnarl, and then he had a Colossal plus Urshifu mode in the back, and he led game 1 and 2. He led Grimmsnarl plus Celesteela, and I led Grimmsnarl plus Veno into it every time because I need to answer the call mode, and I guess I didn't actually think that, you know, set Trick Room and then just max quick it with Torkoal. I actually probably should have done that. I guess I was afraid of Trick, but I would essentially force him to taunt early, and I could Sludge Bomb the Grimmsnarl as I set screens, and I could essentially, he wanted to max the next turn, and if he did, I swapped out into Zapdos, wasted his max turns, and then in the end, Venusaur, don't even really need to hit it. Just maybe one Ice Beam or something, or just any stray hit plus Vine Lash is going to take it out in the end game. It's going to sit there the entire game, but you will beat it in the end, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely played like that in one of my games in that set as well. Like just getting the ooze try attack immediately as they go for taunt is just so much momentum in your favor. Having Zapdos's defensive typing in the back and getting vines up is like it's just so fatal for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't know how feasible that game plan is without having something like Zapdos, when they might be able to overpower you without that defensive typing. That's part of the reason why I thought this team was so cool, is because it responds to what I think is just like the most common counterplay, and it's just like on every team nowadays. And yeah, so that's a good, really solid recap of how the team plays. North, do you want to talk about your tournament run?
Yeah. So I should start off by saying that this started at 3:30 in the morning for me. So I took a nap at like 6 o'clock with zero intention to join the tournament. But I guess I was tired that day, and I woke up at like 12, and I was like, well, I'm not going to sleep. So I was like, oh, VR's whatever, I'll join. And I guess it was probably partly me still being tired, but I started out 2-2, and I remember first one of my wins was my opponent didn't show up. But both the losses and the win, I was like, man, I'm just not playing good. I was taking bad lines, and it just wasn't going well. And I don't really know what changed in the next 3 rounds, but I managed to clutch it out. And towards the end, I kind of like felt myself doing well. I was actually getting like good long-term game plans going. And then the next day, Top Cut happened. And I was prepared for top 32. There was like 0% chance I was losing top 32, because I knew that matchup. This is where Venusaur Regirock just came in and just rolled. They couldn't do anything. At worst, they had to hope they dodged a Sleep Powder, but he didn't even play it to that, thankfully. But then as my set's going, also in top 16, I very easily could have lost in top 16. It was the Paul Chua team with the support Thunderous. It wasn't Paul Chua that played it. I think it was Scissor G or something like that. Sisman, yeah. He had support Thunderous, and it's really, really annoying. I ended up winning game 1 by him misplaying and taunting my P2 as I maxed in Hailstorm, and then it kind of just won from there. I completely one-shot a Finny by critting it the next turn, but I don't think I could have lost the endgame without Muddy Water Drops or something. I think game 2, I don't really remember what happened. Essentially, it's me trying to just kill the Thunderous without losing too much momentum. And I think I got into a really good spot early on. I took Venusaur in this game. And I said to myself, it was Venusaur Grimmsnarl versus something, some lead where Venusaur wasn't being threatened. And I was like, well, I had light screen up. There's a Life Orb Landorus in the back. I really, really need Reflect, or else this thing's going to destroy me. But I think I can probably make enough offensive headway if I ooze and then switch into Porygon 2, who's going to get a special attack boost. Turns out that I can't kill Thunderous fast enough, and Incineroar parting shotting my Venusaur twice, plus the Eerie Impulses on P2 just completely nullified all my boosts. And then I just got one shot by a Landorus, and my only out to winning the game was a Hurricane Confusion into a hit, and I got it. And I won the second game because of that. So I really, game 3 was going to be really tight. I think I could have won game 2 with better play around Venusaur. If I had maxed more intelligently, if I had gotten Reflect, I probably could have won an endgame. But if my opponent does an adaptation, like he never brought Kartana, which was the scariest mon to bringing Venusaur, basically, because I really, if I max it, I'm not really going to be damaging Kartana that well. If he brings that game 3, I don't know what I'm doing. I could just lose this set, and I could be out there. That,
I mean,
and then after that,
Riley won a regional doing the exact same thing in finals, so we definitely take those.
Yeah, but then after that set, I started playing really well, I think. I had a really cool game 3 versus Yuki Zone. I had a game 1 versus Yuki-zan was the game where I clicked Sleep Powder. I had a really cool game plan where I would lead Regirock Zapdos. I guessed that he would lead Amoonguss Incineroar because it felt like the safest lead. And I would protect Zapdos to stop the parting shot, switch in Venusaur, and then Sleep Powder the Incineroar as I killed the Amoonguss. And it worked, but I missed the Sleep Powder. So I lost that game, and then just barely clutched out game 2 and 3. I think Regirock got some flinches in game 3. But I think I was still winning that one. I think. But it was very, very close. Also, top 4 was also really cool because I had faced Turan that week in NPA using the exact same team, and he was using the exact same team. So we got to play a rematch, and I won both of them. So it was good.
Yeah, this team seems like it has a pretty favorable matchup into Taran's team for sure.
It's really, really shaky.
So you can talk about it if you want.
Gothitelle is terrifying.
Okay.
Gothitelle Regieleki, if you don't lead Venucole, is going to destroy you. Regieleki will one-shot everything on your team if you do not lead Venusaur. So you have to lead Venusaur or else you're losing. And a lot of Venusaur leads, you may get hypnosised. And if you do, you probably lose. So turn 1 is really, really shaky. No matter what he does. If he leads so he ended up leading Togekiss and Gothitelle into both the games we played. And in game 2, so game 1 I went for the Sleep Powder, expecting him to try and Hypnosis or something, and he ended up fake outing. Game 2 I was like, whatever, I'm gonna max. He's not gonna Hypnosis, and he Hypnosis and missed, and I just rolled him from there.
Wow. 4 Gothitelle failed. That's incredible.
Yeah, that's the classic.
I completely despise the matchup because in a lot of cases against offensive Aleki, specifically Life Orb, you're forced to bring Grimmsnarl so that your entire team doesn't get one shot. But if you lead Grimmsnarl into Gothitelle, it's also an awful situation because, fake out and kill the Grimmsnarl is almost always free. So in a lot of cases, that matchup is going to rely on A, hitting Hypnosis, and B, sleep turns. So it's just ugly.
Yeah, that makes sense. I often think of Venusaur as being really good into Regieleki. Although I guess, did you guys outspeed Regieleki when you were?
Yeah, we do.
Okay. So, but I guess Gothitelle changes the dynamic completely because Grimmsnarl is just like such a bad Pokemon to that. It's just, you can't switch out. And it, like you said, you just get to ignore it in some matchups and they get to ignore it in this matchup.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so tell me about the grand finals against Edu.
So to start off, this was really important for game 1. I finished my set earlier, so I had watched game 3 of Kevin Salvetto versus Edu, and he was using Sun as well. So I had seen what the Venusaur Grimmsnarl lead. What Edu did game 3 was he would taunt the Venusaur plus just Flash Cannon the Grimmsnarl. So I was like, yeah, he's gonna do that again game 3, and I'm pretty sure I need to go Venusaur into this matchup, just for Colossal, or at least I did at the time. So game 1, I decided to Sludge Bomb into the Grimmsnarl, and set up a light screen, and the Flash Cannon, and he taunted, and the Flash Cannon ended up doing like 40%, so he needed to max to kill Grimmsnarl, and because of that, I was able to bait it. I baited the max and then switched out Venusaur for Torkoal, and I stalled all the max turns, and then Venusaur ended up winning the endgame. Although there was one close turn where I probably could have lost, where I had Zapdos and Torkoal in versus, I think he just had Celesteal and something else. I don't remember. And I couldn't really click a fire move with Torkoal because the threat of Colossal switching in is really big. It's pretty bad. If it switches in, I think I lose no matter what. So I didn't really know what to do. In my head, I was like, okay, so the turn ended after I clicked Protect plus something else that wasn't important. Probably T-Bolt or something. Yeah, it was T-Bolt. And I was like, maybe I should have swapped into Grimmsnarl. And turns out Edu tried to cover that. So he ended up steel spiking into my protecting Torkoal, which is after the turn, I was like, I should switch Torkoal into Grimmsnarl. It'll give me better positioning. He's just going to Rockfall. And I ended up, he just steel spiked into it. And then from there, he didn't really have too many chances to win the game. And then game 2, he made an adjustment where he would trick turn 1. And then with my Venusaur being slow, I pretty much couldn't really win the end game versus Max Colossal. I tried maxing Torkoal in front of it, and it got one shot in light screen. And then game 3 ended. I changed it up. I led Zapdos Grimmsnarl, and he changed it up as well to lead Colossal Grimmsnarl. And turn 1, he went for what was it? So I decided to double up into the Grimmsnarl to kill it. And I don't remember what he did with the Grimmsnarl, but he rockfalled the Zapdos. And if he had max flared that turn instead, I probably just lost on the spot. Because then Urshifu would come in next turn, get the Aqua Jet, and I don't think I could win the end game because Urshifu would be too threatening to the side while I need to max Quake with Venu. But he ends up rockfalling. I kill the Grimmsnarl. I get in Venusaur. And then the next turn's really awkward where Venusaur is going to get hit really hard and with rocks up. So I have to go for max guard Spirit Break, and he attacks into the Venu. So because of that, I'm able to live. I kill the Colossal. And then the end game ends up coming down to Urshifu plus mostly full health Celesteela, around maybe 70 at the start, versus Torkoal Grimmsnarl. And Torkoal's at full, light screen's up, and in my head I'm like, well, if I don't, I'm pretty sure I win if I don't get flinched. I think Torkoal lives, and it does live with maybe 10% left, but I flinch as I kill the Grimmsnarl. As I kill the Urshifu. And at this point I was like, okay, I can still win. I can protect. Or at least I can play Protect Mind Games, and then Vine Lash plus Spirit Break's going to end the game. I was like, Edu's going to predict that. I'm not going to protect. He ends up killing the Torkoal as I Spirit Break. And at this point, I have like 60-something HP on Grimmsnarl. I'm 99% sure it's dead. But it just lives with, I think, 5 HP as I Spirit Break, and Vine Lash picks up the KO on Celesteela. And I was so happy. I ended up watching the replay from Edu's perspective, and the whole chat was congratulating him on winning. And then the Grimmsnarl lived. And he's just like, oh, I lost. Well, so it was a really fun ending.
Yeah,
glad
that sounds like an insane set.
Yeah.
And of course, that was streamed on Edu's Twitch channel, and so you can go watch that, and there will be a link in the description to the VOD
I was
of that
streaming
match.
too. All of my matches should still be up on my Twitch. It was last week. I don't think Twitch has deleted it yet, but I have the whole VOD of my Top Cut on my Twitch. Which is,
I take that back. I'm not linking Edu at all. I'm linking Nora's Twitch channel that you should definitely go check out. Give him a follow. I did not know that. Well, I guess that's a great transition to. So of course the rental code is on screen, and I encourage you to try it out. And do you have any shout outs that you want to give?
Shout outs to Kunal for actually giving me the team. The only reason I got it was like, I want to play Venusaur in the Hatters chat, Discord, and he gives me this. So I ended up using it for NPA, and then I ended up using it for this. Me and Jackson haven't talked before this.
Yeah.
So I would never have touched this team.
Yeah, Kunal was just the middleman. Like, I'd not talked to North once. Yeah, if you don't have any other shout-outs, I would like to shout out Rob McNeely for being handsome, and that's it.
I love it. And so I actually have no idea who that is, but I appreciate it.
It's I'll send you the Twitter at. You put it on screen, it'll be fancy.
Will do. And so I guess any final words other than definitely go follow both these fine gentlemen on Twitter. Go follow North on Twitch. Jackson, you don't stream suddenly, do you?
No, I don't.
So any other final words?
No.
Not for me.
All right.
Go
Well,
Hatters.
thank you guys so much for coming out. I'm glad you guys finally got to meet each other. And again, congratulations on North on your incredible win, and Jackson on completely reinventing Sun once again, like the 8th time.
It's my job. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thanks, Addy.
All right. And until next time, I will see you all later.